The US says TikTok is a national security threat and is threatening to ban it. But will banning it really solve the problem? Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. Well, the writing seems to be on the wall for TikTok. Canada recently banned it on government devices. New Zealand expanded its ban to include Parliament. The EU, the UK, and Australia all have at least partially banned it. And most damaging of all, your mom is now on it. Once your parents think something is cool, it officially stops being cool. And now, the US is taking it one step further. The Biden administration is pushing TikTok's Chinese parent company, ByteDance, to either sell its stake or face a TikTok ban in the US. As you can imagine, TikTok hasn't been taking this lying down. Earlier this month, it opened a transparency center. Unfortunately, it left as many questions as it had answers. The purported inside look into TikTok's algorithm hardly scratched the surface. It's kind of like when you ask a Juggalo what their favorite Insane Clown Posse album is, and they ask deck 1 or deck 2 of the Joker cards. Now I'm more confused than when I started. Last month, TikTok started labeling state-affiliated media. About 3 years behind the competition, but better late than never, right? All that having failed, now it's appealing directly to American voters.
Hi everyone, it's Shou here. I'm the CEO of TikTok. Some politicians have started talking about banning TikTok. Now this could take TikTok away from all 150 million of you. I'll be testifying before Congress later this week to share all that we're doing to protect Americans using the app and deliver on our mission to inspire creativity and to bring joy. Let me know in the comments what you want your elected representatives to know about what you love about TikTok.
Yes, 150 million users. The phrase TikTok Army just went from cute to a veiled threat. But pay attention to how he frames that number.
Today, I'm super excited to announce that more than 150 million Americans are on TikTok. That's almost half of the US coming to TikTok.
Yeah, Biden, you wouldn't want to piss off half the country before the 2024 election, would you? You know, like all those Gen Zers that live on TikTok? My, look at the time, it's just 19 months away. Are you really sure you want to start a generational civil war right now? Joke's on the TikTok CEO. Judging by his presidency so far, Biden isn't afraid of pissing off even more than half of the country. Bring on the hate, Zoomers. But in all seriousness, TikTok should be worried. This is the second time a US president has threatened to ban TikTok. The second time could be the charm. President Trump tried to ban it through executive order, citing national security concerns, which I'll discuss in a moment. The order got tangled up in the courts till Trump left office, and when Biden got into office, he dropped the appeal to conduct his own national security review. 2 years later, Biden has reached the same conclusion that Trump did, that it's a huge national security threat. The only thing that's changed since then is that instead of 100 million users in the US, TikTok now has 150 million, or as TikTok put it, almost half the country. At this rate, in a few more years, every American will be on TikTok. Even me, against my will. TikTok is spreading and assimilating like the Borg from Star Trek, a reference that's older than most people on TikTok. For now. There actually has been one positive development in the past 2 years. Congress is finally stepping up to make it easier to ban TikTok. One of the reasons Trump's executive order got tangled up in the courts is because his executive order was on shaky legal ground. Now, a bipartisan group of senators have introduced the Restrict Act to cover some of the legal pitfalls a ban could face. Why did it take them 2 years, you ask? Well, I'm guessing it's because they were having trouble coming up with a good enough acronym. Might I suggest the TikTok Act? You know, because time is ticking. I just came up with that on the spot, seriously. Who's ever in charge of making acronyms for Congress, just hire me. The bill hasn't even been introduced into the House yet, at least not as of this recording. But the White House has already basically said that Biden will sign it if it passes Congress. Which means this ban might actually have some teeth this time. More on that after the break. Welcome back. So the Biden administration has threatened to ban TikTok if Chinese owner ByteDance doesn't sell its stake in the company. TikTok claims that it sunk $1.5 billion into a plan that would have satisfied U.S. national security concerns and allowed ByteDance to keep its stake. But apparently, the Biden administration isn't buying it. Now, when people talk about national security concerns, there are two main things they're talking about. One is that the Chinese Communist Party could get its hands on user data that the app collects. And the other is the influence that the app's algorithm could have on American users, or as TikTok likes to think of them, American voters. Eventually. Now, critics of the ban will say that these fears are being blown out of proportion, and that the U.S. is overreacting without any evidence. But there's definitely plenty of evidence of China's influence in TikTok. First of all, TikTok collects a ton of user data, including things like IP addresses, phone numbers, keystroke patterns, and email addresses. And that is just a partial list. And yes, it collects your keystroke patterns, because it's not enough to know where you live, it also wants to know how hard and fast you tap. That should be enough to creep you out. What are they looking for? Bass players? Some experts say it's on par with other social media apps, while some say TikTok collects much more. But either way, the fact that ByteDance, TikTok's parent company, is based in China makes any data it collects seem like too much. Part of TikTok's plan to satisfy the government was to make sure that Americans' data was being stored inside the U.S., an initiative it named Project Texas, presumably because you don't mess with it. In June, TikTok said that all U.S. user data was being routed through data centers by Texas-based company Oracle. At the same time, it said it still had backups on its own centers in Virginia and Singapore, but was planning to migrate that data to Oracle. According to legal filings by the Trump administration, those backup data centers in Singapore were owned by China-based company Alibaba. This is my surprised face. If you're wondering why I don't have any wrinkles, it's because nothing shocks me at this point. Now, the reason this isn't just like any U.S. company holding your data is because the Chinese regime can basically get access to any data a Chinese company holds. Under China's 2017 cybersecurity law, network operators are required to cooperate with Chinese crime or security investigators and allow full access to data and unspecified technical support to the authorities upon request. So basically, the Chinese Communist Party can ask a company to turn over its data, and by law, it's got to comply. And even if the data is stored in Singapore, if the government shows up and asks a Chinese company for its data, you know what's going to happen if the company refuses to comply. Thank God Panda Express is an American company that just happens to sell Chinese food. I don't need the CCP making inquiries into how many crab rangoons I eat in a single sitting. But here's where it gets visibly shady. When TikTok started transferring data to Oracle under Project Texas, TikTok employees reportedly tried to figure out where the data was being stored. Leaked recordings show that a member of TikTok's U.S. Trust and Safety team had been asked by Chris Lepetak, TikTok's chief internal auditor, to meet at an LA area restaurant off hours. Lepetak, who reports to Beijing-based Songya, then asked the employee detailed questions about the location and details of the Oracle server that is central to TikTok's plans to limit foreign access to personal U.S. user data. So basically, a high-level TikTok employee who reported directly to a Beijing-based ByteDance employee tried to get detailed information about a TikTok server that ByteDance isn't supposed to be able to access. This employee reported the conversation to his manager because he was so freaked out by it. Chris Lepetak was later fired, but not because of that. He was fired for supposedly being part of a team that used TikTok data to spy on journalists reporting on the company. They also allegedly spied on TikTok's former global security chief, who was responsible for limiting the access of American user data to China-based employees. Not a good look for TikTok as it tries to reassure Americans that TikTok is safe. It's like a bear trying to convince salmon it's not a danger to them while eating sushi. But here's the real kicker. and what this has to do with banning TikTok. According to the New York Times, the employees that did this obtained historical data on the journalists they tracked, not current data. That means that with the data they already had, not using their current location, TikTok/ByteDance was able to get the locations of US-based journalists. I don't think that's what those journalists had in mind when they asked people to follow them on social media. If you consider how much American user data, things like IP addresses, phone numbers, and contact info that TikTok has, and how easy it would be for the Chinese government to get access to it, you could see how the Chinese government tracking Americans is a real threat. Okay, maybe not the only threat. I'm pretty sure with all of China's hacking and all the user data being sold by data brokers, there are other ways China could still get similar info. But it's still really scary. At the very least, maybe we should make it hard for them and not hand it over willingly. This is like if while someone is trying to rob you, you said, "Oh wait, don't you also want my password and PIN codes too?" And after the break, I'll tell you about how TikTok's algorithms may be manipulating Americans. Welcome back. After clashes between the Chinese and Indian soldiers in 2020, India banned a bunch of Chinese apps, including TikTok. That was a good thing, but India just banned the apps without mandating what should happen to all the user data. And according to Forbes, TikTok just kept it. That's like making cocaine illegal, but saying, if you already have some, feel free to use it, have a good time. According to an employee and a review of internal TikTok and ByteDance programs by Forbes, almost anyone at the companies with basic access to their tools can retrieve and analyze granular data about past TikTok users in India. One social mapping tool, which the TikTok employee jokingly called NSA to go, can spit out a list of any public or private user's closest connections on TikTok and personally identifiable information about them, and it still pulls up the TikTok profiles of people in India. Even their keystroke patterns. Seriously, are they looking for the next Flea or Geddy Lee? Now, some people this may not seem like a big deal. Who cares if a Chinese company or even the Chinese government has my data? I'm a nobody. What's the worst they could do with it? First of all, you're not a nobody. You're important, and I believe in you. You've got to work on your self-esteem. Second, according to the Trump administration, that data could potentially allow China to track the locations of federal employees and contractors, build dossiers of personal information for blackmail, and conduct corporate espionage. And I'll add another. If the Chinese Communist Party can figure out what things make you TikTok, they could use it to sow division in the U.S. China has already been caught meddling in 2 recent U.S. elections. And if it can sow enough division, it knows it can weaken the U.S., which will make China comparatively stronger. And this could have huge consequences if China were to invade Taiwan and the U.S. tried to mount a defense. China's like a shady dude that's causing drama in someone else's relationship, so they'll be too distracted to stop them from going after their single vulnerable friend. Which brings me to TikTok's other major threat, its algorithm. TikTok's secret weapon is believed to be its recommendation engine that keeps users glued to their screens. This engine, or algorithm, powers TikTok's For You page, which recommends the next video to watch based on an analysis of your behavior. ByteDance engineers created TikTok's algorithm. And one of the concerns is not just content that users see, but also what they're not seeing. Back in 2019, The Guardian obtained documents showing that TikTok was censoring videos that, shall we say, would not please Beijing. If you ever wondered why China Uncensored isn't on TikTok, it's because we'd be about as popular there as Salt Bae at a slug's baby shower. TikTok instructs its moderators to censor videos that mention Tiananmen Square, Tibetan independence, or the banned religious group Falun Gong. Now, TikTok says it no longer does that. But that's hard to prove, especially because TikTok's Transparency Center left as many questions as it had answers. Just like asking a juggalo their favorite ICP album. When a Washington Post journalist searched on TikTok for Shenyun, an American dance performance group that is highly critical of the Chinese Communist Party, TikTok's first suggested search term was Shenyun dance cult. This echoes language the Chinese government has used to describe the Falun Gong movement linked to the dance group. For more on why the Chinese government is afraid of Shenyun, check out this video I did a few years ago. I'll put a link to it in the description below. But it's these kinds of stories that make you think those censorship guidelines The Guardian saw back in 2019 might still be baked into the algorithm. And if you're wondering if your videos aren't getting a lot of views because the CCP is suppressing you, it could be. More likely because no one wants to see you twerk at Arby's. There have been a slow drizzle of reports about how TikTok has carried tons of Russian propaganda, pushed divisive videos by Chinese state media about US politicians, and promoted suicide to teens. It's like they saw 13 Reasons Why and thought, we can give them way more reasons than that. Promoting good content isn't just an issue facing TikTok. All the big social media companies struggle with this. But when you know a Chinese company is behind it, it really makes you wonder how much of this has just flown under the radar and how much is intentional. And given China's spy balloons, they're not really great at having things fly under the radar. It's especially an issue because more and more Americans are getting their news from TikTok. It would be easy for TikTok to downplay news that Beijing didn't like while promoting news and opinions that it did. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't ban TikTok or it shouldn't be sold to a US-based company. I think that's long overdue. But just banning or selling it is only a first step. Congress needs to pass legislation that would ban other Chinese apps, like ByteDance's other app, CapCut, which is signing on new users even faster than TikTok. Once a Chinese company gets your data, there's no telling what it or the Chinese Communist Party will do with it. And the best way to protect against that is to not give them any data in the first place. That's why Congress also needs to keep data brokers from selling US user data in the first place, which I'm sure Congress will do just as soon as they can come up with a good acronym for the bill. Seriously, just hire me. And remember, China Uncensored is able to keep making videos like this because of viewers like you. As a thank you to the viewers who support China Uncensored through the crowdfunding website Patreon or the exclusive social media platform Locals, I'll answer one of their questions. Today's question comes from Ringleader on Patreon, who asks, hey Chris, when Russia's military fully collapses, as well as Putin's government, do you think the CCP might try to take some of Russia's territory and holdings like the city of Vladivostok? Well, Ringleader, if that were to happen, I think a lot of it would depend on what type of government replaces Putin. If it's a government that's friendly to the CCP, I don't think the CCP would try to take Russian territory. Conquering and administering a territory is such a pain in the butt. It's much easier to just loan the new Russian government lots of money to rebuild after the war. Money that they have to spend hiring Chinese companies and workers to move in and rebuild for them. And if Russia can't pay those loans back, then maybe China will take a port or two as compensation. So much easier than invading. What I'm saying, Ringleader, is that the CCP is much more likely to make an economically and politically weak Russia into a tribute state to China. In fact, they're already starting to do that. Thanks for your question and your support. Thank you for watching. Once again, if you want to join the China Uncensored 50-cent army, head over to patreon.com/China Uncensored. All it takes is $1 per episode to keep China Uncensored going. If you want to support the show but can't afford $1 an episode, you can also set a monthly limit. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.